My decision to write my book, Losing Linda May, a cancer caregiving memoir, in first-person present tense made it a little bit trickier to introduce the various people who were in my life at the time, because I couldn't have the internal monologue descriptions like you would in a traditional memoir or anything written in third person, where I could explain who that person was to me. So for example, my first significant boyfriend was Ben. And I couldn't explain, if Ben appeared in the book, that we met in college, that we dated for 2.5 years, that he lived with me for 2 of those years. That wouldn't be something that I could convey just in the body of the text. I would have to convey it through the dialogue, through some subtle hints here and there. That was the only organic way to feature someone in the book. And so I had to think really carefully about who I included in the book and who I didn't include. And that made scenes where there was a group setting, especially like a birthday party, which happens in the moments I included for October 10th and 11th in my book, a little difficult because I really could only have people that I had already mentioned in the book or who would become a presence later on in the book, because otherwise it just narratively would make it really challenging for the reader to understand what was going on if I just had a ton of different names that they've never seen before and not be able to give them any context about who they were. In this video, I'm going to talk through a sequence of events that I ended up cutting from this evening because I ended up getting rid of Ben, that individual I brought up before, from the entire book, just because I needed to trim down the content in the book to make it more of a palatable size. And also, it didn't feel like it was that imperative to the narrative, though it was really significant to me at the time. Here's more of that context that would have been really hard to include even if I did keep Ben in the book due to those limitations that I described. So Ben and I both went to the film program at New York University. He was a year older than me. I had seen him around the building quite a bit, and I always thought he was really cute. We hadn't officially met until Halloween of 2009 at a party. At that time, I was really insecure, and so if I liked someone, I actually gave them the cold shoulder, and I was just really bitchy to them, and that's exactly what I did with Ben. So he didn't have a very good first impression of me, but despite that, we added each other on Facebook. I tried to see if he wanted to hang out, but he kind of gave me the cold shoulder, which reciprocated what I gave to him during that party. But turns out that we both had the same main film class the next semester, spring of 2010. We started hanging out a lot. I was fully in love with him, but he didn't seem to want to reciprocate it. He was really trying to keep me in the friend zone. And I knew he had a track record where people kind of would force him into a relationship. And then about a month later, he would just break up with them. We did actually become official in April of 2010. And I was terrified that entire next month or two just waiting for him to break up with me. But I kind of made myself the perfect boyfriend at that time. So it really reduced the likelihood of that happening. And turns out we did survive that initial period of time. And we actually moved in together after only 6 months. Throughout our relationship, we got really enmeshed in each other's lives. We both had strong relationships with each other's families. My parents had met him several times, gone on trips together with him, vice versa. And so it was a really nice and stable relationship. I just felt like towards the end that I was evolving as a human being a little bit faster than he was, and I was trying to move forward in life in a way that didn't seem aligned with him. And so I ended up ultimately ending the relationship, but thankfully we were able to transition the relationship into a friendship, and it wasn't too awkward. Of course, there were some weird things that happened in the immediate aftermath, but we've still maintained that friendship even to this day. But going back to October of 2015, I had invited Ben to my birthday party, and he confirmed that he was going to be coming. In a previous moment that is in the book on October 7th, when Leah and I are at Who Kitchen having dinner, she warns me about getting too close and trying to rekindle things with someone that I've loved in the past. In the book, it seems like she is just referring to Javier, but in actuality, she's referring to both Javier and Ben because she knew that he was going to be coming to the party. So cut to the party itself. Ben arrives. I'm pretty intoxicated. He is much less intoxicated than I am, and he steps into the apartment that we used to share together. This isn't his first time being there since we had broken up. He had come many other times, including to other birthday parties, but we are there with our friends Ray and Guido, who I ended up cutting from the book as well, and they're remarking on some of the things that are on the chalkboard wall, which I've mentioned in a previous video. And so they were commenting on all these messages that were written when Ben and I were together, including one that said Ben and Logan forever. Guido writes on the wall "or not" underneath it. And that kicks off this conversation with Ben and I about the apartment itself. And we comment on just the various things within it that we tried to do, including this weird subway track that we wanted to create on the ceiling. And there was still all the little track marks that we had placed in hopes of making it work, but it just was a really failed interior design effort. And so we were just really relishing in those moments. There was a lot of fondness there and a lot of bonding. And I just felt a lot of warmth off of Ben that evening, even from the get-go. The party then transitioned to this bar on 14th Street called Wooden Ales. And by that point, I'm really drunk. I'm also a little upset because I had invited a lot of other people to the bar component of my party, but no one was showing up. And I felt like after me being away for such a long period of time, being a primary caregiver for my mom, that more people would make an effort to be there. And so I was in kind of my feelings, which made me want to drink even more. And so then Ben and I got to talking about an issue that came up earlier in the year when my mom's cancer had metastasized to her brain and spinal cord. I had texted him about the development and he did not respond to me. I didn't hear anything from him, but I heard from his mom who offered her condolences. And that's when I knew that he had for sure seen the message. He just decided not to reply to me. We had kind of hashed things out at that point, but it really bubbled up again when I was drunk. Here is that exchange from the first draft of my book. I'm not going to lie, it made me really upset, but I realize now that some people can't handle cancer. Like if I put yourself in my shoes, if I put myself in your shoes, God, I'm too drunk to be having this conversation, I say, shaking my head. We don't have to keep talking about it, he says, taking on the scared puppy look that he always donned whenever I reprimanded him in our relationship. No, it's fine. It's good to talk about things. Okay, if I put myself in your shoes, I wouldn't know what to say either if my ex told me that his mom's cancer came back and it was worse. Would I have at least responded with something? Yes, absolutely. But I get why you didn't want to deal with that on a Friday evening. I'm so sorry, Logan. It's fine. Let's move past it, okay? My mom is getting better physically. She's far from the woman who raised me, the woman that you knew, and I can't tell you how worried I am that she'll never get back to that point mentally, but I'm fine. I'm taking things as they come. My eyes fill with tears and blur my vision. I continue speaking as if I was not showing any emotion. New year, new you, right? That's what everyone says. I guess that applies to like New Year's, but I think it can also apply to birthdays. Logan, can I hug you? I nod. So that's exactly what we do, and that embrace just feels so familiar, which is what I was desperately seeking at that time because I had just gone through something so life-changing and I had experienced so much change. Being in the arms of my first significant boyfriend felt like home to a certain extent. And so of course I was gravitating towards him. And of course I was resonating with him in that moment, even though there was that point of conflict. I still just loved him so much, and it just felt so good to be with him again. To be clear, Ben and I didn't have one of those situationships after we broke up where we just kept hooking up until one of us ended up finding something more serious. It was a clean break. And so this was uncharted territory for us. Yes, we had felt pretty close previous times when we were both drunk, but this really felt like something was being rekindled, at least to me, and I was really drawn to it. I was thinking at the time, am I gonna go home with Ben tonight? Would that be weird if Ben and I slept together again? The party then transitions to Mr. Biggs, which is a bar that I went to earlier in part 3 in my book when I had initially come back to New York City, and I was hanging out with Brett, Steven, and their friend Tyler, who I went home with that night. So one of the moments I cut from that period in time is that Ben actually came to Mr. Biggs that night earlier in September and was there when I was hanging out with Tyler, and it was very evident that I was being really intimate with Tyler and that we were going to go home together. So now this was the reverse situation. I was showing up with Ben and we were being very flirty and close, but then Tyler was there and kind of swooped in and really stole Ben's thunder, so to speak. And then I just kind of gravitated towards Tyler. The first thing that James and Antonio brought up when I sat down for brunch with them, which is included on October 12th in my book, was the fact that they thought I was going to go home with Ben the night before. And it's funny because James is also an ex-boyfriend of mine, so he knew my intentions. He knew my body language. He knew what was going on in that moment, and he thought it was a for sure thing. But then the appearance of Tyler really redirected everything and then led to a different conclusion. And so that obviously wasn't able to be featured in the book because Ben wasn't in the book. In summary, my 27th birthday was much more eventful than what is captured in my book. And there's actually more to the story with Ben that unfolds later on in part 5. So stay tuned for a video at that point where I'll discuss what else I ended up cutting. I'll be releasing my next video on October 13th, and I'll be talking about the ripple effects that happen when we make choices in life. So hit subscribe, leave any questions in the comments. The link to my book is in the description, and I will see you all then.